Hello everyone, Looter here.
Goodness! That's my Penta! Give it to me!
I'm the former rank 1 Rumble in the world, and here's my Season 11 Rumble guide. Enjoy. So for top lane Rumble, I like to go Arcane Comet with Nimbus Cloak, Absolute Focus, and either Gathering Storm or Scorch. It really depends on the matchup. If you feel like you can solo kill the enemy or force them out of lane, then Scorch is actually quite nice because it applies almost pretty much off cooldown every 10 seconds just because of how low your abilities are, right? Q's a 10-second cooldown, level 1, E's 6, plus you get 2 in the chamber. Like, you really get to apply Scorch quite a bit. But if you don't feel it's necessary, then Gathering Storm is always the safe option. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. These are the best runes for top Rumble just because of how much you're trading. You get a lot of sustain and you don't really fall out of lane. The only other option I see is if you go Cheap Shot. And if you go Cheap Shot, then you would probably want to partner it with Scorch, because then at this point you're just playing for lane instead of post lane. For mid lane, this is their typical Electrocute page, and in the past, in Season 10, most people would be going like Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking, or like Nimbus Cloak and Scorch, or something along these lines. What I've found so far in Season 11 is because people are rushing Mythic item, like right away, right? They don't want to waste 300 gold to reduce the spike. If you have like EC, so for each takedown you acquire the boots 45 seconds sooner, so if you're running around the map like killing people anyways, then you'll get your boots pretty fast, and on top of that it gives you 10 more move speed than boots would typically give you. So Rumble has changed in the sense where you don't want to rush Sorc Boots anymore because it delays your mythic item spike so much. So I think having this magical footwear partnered with something like Approach Velocity is really nice, because Approach Velocity applies both on when you E someone and slow them, and then you get to have more move speed and move up to them faster. And at the same time when you R someone, because it's within 1,000 range, so it's really nice to just kind of like speed up on your opponents. It's not quite like the level of like having Ghost, but it applies so much to Rumble just because you have 2 different slows built into your kit. And like other champions have so much CC lately that there's a chance that you just are getting it from someone else CCing them too. One more option is if you're against something that's really hard to lane against, or an all-in champion like Zed, Talon, maybe Fizz, right? Champions that don't really poke you, but will just all-in you. Having Shield Bash and Bone Plating, or Shield Bash and Second Wind, depending on the matchup, I'm usually Shield Bash Bone Plating, is really nice, because pretty much if they're going to all-in you, they have to deal with Bone Plating, on top of the extra armor you get from Shield Bash, and like you basically have W up all the time, so you can trade back with autos and you get that little bit more damage there. So this rune page is more for roaming the map and kind of 1v9ing the game on Rumble. It typically works better if you're smurfing, or if you feel like the enemy has a bunch of squishy champions, then you can just take over the game by yourself. Obviously Dark Harvest is a lot less power in lane, so you're sacking your laning phase like potential, I guess, to get ahead by having a rune that scales up and can end up being like a 1v9 rune, is how I like to see it. So Dark Harvest with Cheap Shot and Eyeball Collection and Ultimate Hunter. You can also go Ravenous Hunter, but I find like if you're going this style, you should just take Ultimate Hunter and have like the shortest ult CDR as possible, so you can run around the map and kill people. And I like partnering it with Tenacity runes and Triumph, just because you're probably getting a lot of kills with this rune set. It's either you're getting a lot of kills or you're losing the game, basically. Or so like you might as well go all in, and Triumph helps you do that. And on top of that, like having Tenacity built in is quite nice if you're just going to be fighting so much. You'll find this comes in handy quite a lot. It does give a ton of tenacity. So the other rune setup is if you want to like purely focus on early game roaming, then Water Walking is really nice, and having that with either Celerity or Nimbus Cloak can be quite good too. For top lane, I love to go Riftmaker into Sorcerer's Shoes, and then Demonic Embrace. These items have great synergy with one another, and you get a ton of Omnivamp from the mythic passive of Riftmaker. Zonia's is also a great secondary item if you're against a full AD team, because Seekers gives 45 armor early. This is the most simple version of Rumble's mid lane build, where it plays much like top lane Rumble, and all you do is you try to find opportunities to shred the front line with this build, and you would only go it if there's tanky champions and no one to assassinate. This is the best build path for Electrocute Rumble, and the reason why is Rocker Belt counts as one proc of 3 to proc the Electrocute rune, and along with that, the magic penetration you get from the Mythic passive synergizes really well with these heavy AP items. Now, Night Harvester was literally made for the Dark Harvest rune. These items synergize super well, and you get a ton of CDR from the Mythic passive that pretty much allows you to have ult on like a 30-second cooldown late game, so I recommend going Medjai's with this. So for starting items, we have Dorn's Ring, Dorn's Shield, and Dark Seal. So Dorn's Ring is typically what you're going to want to start on Rumble because it has a nice balance of AP and sustain, where Dorn's Shield is purely for the really hard matchups that you get poked out a lot, both AD and AP matchups, where Dark Seal is for when you're ready to smurf, and typically like to take this with Dark Harvest so you can turn it into a Medjai's later. In my opinion, tier lists are always subjective in the sense that there are so many factors that go into why X champion is good against Y champion. So for example, Rumble vs Aurelia is one of the hardest skill checks for me in Master Tier Plus, but as soon as I face Aurelia mid lane, it becomes extremely easy for me due to the lane being much shorter, which gives Rumble a significant advantage in the 1v1. So take this tier list with a grain of salt and formulate your own conclusions on what you think are good and bad for Rumble, based on your prior experience, so that you can begin to understand when Rumble is a good pick in your solo queue games. And of course, if you have any questions on the matchups, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll reply as soon as possible. So now I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on Rumble. The first major tip I have for newer players on Rumble is to try to keep your heater on 50 when you're in lane. The reason you do that is because you get significant bonuses for using abilities in the danger zone, it's called, when you're in the yellow bar. If you can also try and overheat with all your spells used at the end, then they come up off cooldown at the right time, so overheating doesn't feel as bad. Where if you overheat awkwardly, like I go like this, and then I use like an E or something and overheat, now I can't use my Q, W, I can't do anything, right? So it's really bad. So try to use your spells at the end of your combo before you overheat. So I know I just said that you can't use any of your spells when you overheat because you're silenced, but that's actually not completely true. You can actually use a second E after you overheat, which a lot of people don't know. So the way you do that is you can E at 90 heat, and then toss another one as long as it's within the first 3.2 seconds of this cycle. So the way you mess this up is if you're at 90 heat and you E like this with 2 in the chamber, and you wait until your heat reaches 40 as it decreases, and then you won't have time to do it anymore. You can weave in another ability at 90 heat. At 90 heat, you should only be able to use one, right? Like this. I can either choose W or Q. But because E has a cast time, when you see I throw E, there's a little blue bar that comes up. As long as you weave in another spell, either W or Q, you have the choice. At 90 heat, you can actually use 2 abilities. So the combo is EQ like this at 90 heat, and then you can throw out a second E like this. So that's actually 3 abilities used at 90 heat rather than just what you would think would be 1. So here's EW at 90 heat. And that's the combo. The next trick I want to show you is E flash and R flash. So I'm going to first show you what flash E looks like. That's what flash E looks like. It's pretty chunky and slow, right? But if you do E then flash, like you can do on a lot of champions, it comes out instantly. The other one is R flash. So you can actually R and flash like this to dodge abilities. Now there isn't as much use for this one, but something to note when you're using Rumble R close range is you always want to turn your Q on first and then R, so that while you're stationary and your R is channeling, you can torch them up at the same time. Where if I R and then Q, I have to wait till Q comes out. Just when you're doing this, make sure you're not at 80 or 90 heat, because if you do this, then you can't R, because you're overheated. Now we're going to take a look at some of my gameplay, where I show you how the early game is played and how I transition my leads into the mid game, and how I like to play my late game team fights.
Glory here?
Yeah, look, Glory.
Okay, look for end. Look
Oh,
for
yeah,
end. Just go.
yeah.
Just go.
Oh, MF. No flash, no flash.
Can't do anything until someone heals me a little.
I got MF.
You're good.
Okay.
I'm back here too.
Good job.
Yeah.
Someone back. You can end. Someone down.
Yeah.
He's
Tower.
Nice.
Oh, he tower.
What's up, baby?
Yeah, top one first.
That's right, that's all you got.
Wait, can we build? He's really low.
Kill him,
Nice.
There's one. I don't think the tower's it.
Oriana's up in one. Yeah, hit hard. Maybe spread, so she doesn't.
Alright.
Hey, nice job, guys.
GG.
In the early game, try to take advantage of the fact that you don't use mana, so you have a ton of sustain. Rumble is great at fighting and skirmishing in the early game, so don't be afraid to go for risky 1v2s and all-ins, because a lot of times you may come out on top. The hardest thing to master on Rumble is heat management. Be super mindful of how your heat interacts with your abilities, and remember that Q costs 20, W costs 20, and E's cost 10. Rumble is extremely prone to ganks because of his low mobility, so make sure to ward properly and learn how to hug the correct side of the map so that you don't die to too many ganks. Rumble is one of the best champions in the game at getting lane priority, so make sure to use that to your advantage by making early plays around the map and aid your jungler in getting kills. One of Rumble's greatest strengths is his ability to roam, so make sure to make lots of early plays around the map. When you reach the mid to late game, you want to try to group as much as you can and find winning teamfights where you can take advantage of your large AoE abilities. Rumble is a fantastic champion at skirmishing due to his ability to hit Qs with multiple targets, so make sure to take advantage of that around your mid-game power spikes. The best way to utilize Rumble is to imagine it like terrain. You want to use it to cut off corridors and stop people from escaping, and also to try to choke people into uncomfortable positions.
Okay. I'm trying to zone these guys off. I'll block that. Nice. Lucian, if we can. They're on Nexus. Okay. Yep.
I think we should. Yeah, I think.
Might be a little bit doomed.
Unless
Help me!
late game is ours if we. Nice. Can you guys 2v1 him?
I have ult in 3.
Nexus is half. Show him who's boss.
Kill him! Oh my god,
rip.
Zeta! Kill the minions!
Oh my god.
Kill him! No!
I literally can't.
Wait, we're gonna win.
My final tip is to never give up and have fun. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my YouTube and go follow me on Twitch and Twitter, where I'll be streaming and posting just about every day for the next few months as I begin my journey to become a professional League of Legends player in the Japanese LJL. I wish you the best of luck in Season 11 and hope that you enjoyed my guide and hope to see you again in the near future.